Aloha, and welcome to the Volcano Art Center Gallery. This week, we got to visit the studio of sculptor Owen Fritts. His work has been selected for our Worth of Water exhibit that will be opening on December 17th and will run through January 2026 at our Niaulani campus in Volcano Village. This exhibit is going to be exploring water in all of its forms. So sit back and let's look at what Owen Fritts is creating.
Glop it on, I do a first grind, and then I'll always see like little, how the aluminum's laying up, you can start to see it kind of go linear like this.
That's awesome.
And so I do all the stuff, but I'm like, it's really 10 minutes per joint.
It kind of depends on how you want us to handle money. If we have to take all of the money in, you know,
yeah, this is a life, right? I
This
mean,
is the life.
to me, this is like
It's
the
awesome.
dream is to be able to do big work for the public. Is this one, and what I would do is I would just go like this, and it would enter. This is Illinois stuff that I was originally like Worth of Water. This is 4423. Too busy. There's just way too much going on, and then I came up with that.
That's cool.
So that was, I think I had that in from here. I did another sketch down there. I end up sketching on the back of, you know, mail that
whatever
we
you
picked
have,
up,
I
whatever
get
we
it.
have there, and then it gets
I do the same
dispersed. And then here, okay, so that was the original idea of 50 feet, somewhat in proportion to what size people are. So we're going to be looking about that big.
That's great.
It's still going to be... This is going to be down to the wire, as always.
Yeah.
And that's because I keep changing stuff, and that's just the nature of the beast. Find it out. So it'll start like this, just big and gloppy, right? Under there is a structural weld to make sure that these things are always going to be tightly together. And then I start layering aluminum on top of it, and then I go back through with these round-edged grinders. And believe it or not, candle wax. Candle wax lubricates the joint, so the little particles of aluminum don't clog the sandpaper on that. So I've had some pretty significant influences in my work, which showed through in my architecture firm, but really came to be obvious in my product design and furniture design, and then ultimately sculpture, and that's biomimicry, which is looking at the natural world and looking, basically it's, the mimicry part is like copying, right? That word. So it's biocopying. And so I studied skeletons in an art school before I got into architecture school. All of the, you know, figure drawing and everything, I was constantly in there. And I mean, it was great drawing naked people in college, but it was even better for me to draw skeletons.
Okay.
And I'd be looking for bird skeletons, and you saw some skulls out by the driveway, and there's skulls all around. I am not a hunter by any means. I find these things, and they're just fascinating to me. And so I look at how the lines flow into each other, the way nature builds them. It's in a leaf, it's in a tree, it's in everything.
Yep.
You know, it's in our vascular system, it's in our muscular, our bone system. And so when I'm going back and doing the grind out like I'm doing right now, I'm looking for this kind of like energy line that just moves through, and I don't think about it too much. I've been doing it for so long that I just kind of feel it.
You find it.
You know, I find it, and I get into, like they say, state of flow, right? And so the flow condition, my hands are just these tools, and it's just flowing through me, and I'm not sitting there going like, oh, this is a quarter inch, or I just like let it happen. Get the soot off with a wire brush, and all of this stuff is kind of. At first I would get impatient, like, oh, I gotta go back through and do all the stuff, but I'm like, it's really 10 minutes for getting it right, and maybe half an hour, and then you end up with stuff like, you saw that joint on the upside there, or some of the faces on there. It ends up, the whole thing looks like it's a monolithic, like one piece flow thing. So this will get a 1/2 inch, I'll put in my drill press and do a 1/2 inch thing for the grommet, and I've sized the grommet so that the nozzles fit perfectly inside that, and then this will get finished with 2 set screws, and every one of those 50 holes will then have this, and then I will run the plumbing through there and measure it, and you know, it's all 1/2 inch material, which actually when it's half the scale, and this stuff is more than
It does.
amount due at shipping, ready to go, and the final 25 are completed. can sync them together or they can fade. So what we can do is we can probably not just, so that's just a piece of waste aluminum that's nothing more than just been kind of cut and sculpted and sanded. And I've always wanted to take that collection and do that in silver. Flow. I did this for Disney, which is just a faceted, this was a honeycomb system that we had produced in a company in Belgium. It's injection molded plastic. It's actually rotational molded plastic.
So you've been all over the world. You've done art in many different places. Why here? Why the Big Island? Why did you end up here?
Well, I went to UH for my Master's of Architecture back in 1990 and lived in Hawaii I lived on Oahu for 5 years. Fast forward years later, I lived another year when I was solo in Maui. To me, it's like Hawaii back in my early architecture days out of grad school at UH, working at Farrar, Troy and Associates in Honolulu. All weekend long, I'd be either windsurfing or I'd be carving stuff in wood and making stuff with hand tools in the little rental at the back of Manoa Valley where I lived. And I was making bookshelves and chairs and all sorts of stuff with all the wood that was there. So I was always just in love with the Hawaiian woods, always being connected to, kind of like I said at the beginning, the biomimicry aspect of the sculpture is also about working with the biology of wherever you are. And so in my work, it's always facet or flow. And so obviously the sculpture is flow, right? Mm-hmm. This is facet. And so I've done lots of different work that's facet. I did a whole sofa collection that's kind of basically chunks like this that you stack together. So these are going to be at the Volcano Art Center. So I just created... Exciting to a sculptor. 100 white rubber gauntlets. Oh my God.
It's funny.
To me, it's like you don't have to sit within the canon of what's been done, you know, of what architecture, the definition of what architecture is, what art is, what sculpture is. To me, is actually the first thing that I'm always most interested in is the next generation get inspired by it? Is it interesting to them? This merge, I mean, we got Bluetooth technology and stuff going on, this LED lighting and stuff. And so, you know, if some gamer saw this and said, oh, wow, I got all these ideas, and here's it actually in 3D, you know, and it's not just a 3D printed little model. This is a real thing that I can get wet under.
Exactly.
If the youth is inspired that way, then that's primary to that I care about. And then if adults get jazzed by it, that's cool. And then tertiary would be like if it's something within the broader art scene or architecture design scene, cool, that's great too.